It's taken me more than a year to work up the courage to try out ChatGPT, but oh my goodness. Today I was just asking it some questions and I got really sophisticated answers. And this made me wonder, can you learn skills like gardening from ChatGPT? So today I thought rather than just figure that out by myself, I'd make a little video and show you my reaction to what ChatGPT says for some common garden questions. And the most ubiquitous one around here is how to grow a tomato. So let's see what they say. ChatGPT, how can I help you today? How do I grow a tomato? Question mark. Ooh, general guide. Okay. So I know how to grow a tomato already. And really my question here is this advice good and useful for someone who doesn't know how to grow a tomato already? Selecting tomato varieties, preparing soil, planting, sunlight, watering, support, fertilizing. I prefer the term feeding, but that's okay. Pruning, pest and disease management, and harvesting. That's a generally good overview. Let me read a bit more carefully to see what some of the advice within those headings says. Determinate or indeterminate doesn't really talk about what that difference is, but maybe I could ask that question in a minute. Preparing soil. That's a way to prepare soil. By no means is it the only way. It's saying that you have to till. Sometimes top dressing with compost is much more appropriate, and you don't want to till because you don't want to destroy the natural structure that's there from where roots have been, where worms have dug holes. That's really good for future root development. You don't want it to get compacted, which can happen when you till soil, certainly too much. And there's a big movement, the no-till movement, which more and more people are using, that helps to take advantage of the natural way that soil wants to form and have structure. Planting, plant tomato seedlings. Okay, so if you get seedlings from a nursery, that's fine. When the soil's warmed up to around 15 degrees. Yep, that is different than the air temperature. It also isn't really talking about hardening off. That's okay. That's a little bit of detail that's maybe missing from this. And, for all of us humans, when we give instructions, we miss details because of an oversight or a lack of time or that sort of thing as well. And then from seeds, start them indoors 6 to 8 weeks. Okay, there's maybe some missing instructions there as well. Where do you start them? They need light. How deep do you plant them? All those sorts of things, but that's okay. Sunlight, yep. Evenly moist water, sure. At the base of the plant, yep. I think that's good advice. Support, stake or cage, sure. Again, I think that there are many other good ways to support tomatoes, including tying them to a fence or using a string trellis, maybe more detail than ChatGPT wanted to cram into just a short little guide. It is missing, I think, some important stuff like a normal tomato cage that you get for $3 from the store that will collapse in half of a season, but is what is considered a tomato cage, particularly to many beginners, is not a great idea. And most gardeners who have ever used one of those tomato cages will tell you that's not really going to work, especially for an indeterminate tomato. Maybe for a determinate one, it would be okay. So that's okay. The experience is maybe missing from this. This is very what you would write in a book report, having never actually grown a tomato. So that's interesting because ChatGPT, to my knowledge, has not actually grown a tomato. Fertilizing, again, I wish it said feeding, but that's okay. That's my preference. I keep saying that's okay because some of this is my preference and my opinion. Fertilizer package. Oh, you can feed so many ways. You can use compost, like they mentioned sooner. You can make your own compost tea or worm castings or comfrey leaves or all kinds of things. You don't need to get fertilizer from a store. I think the assumption in that sentence, even though it doesn't say that, is that you should be buying a synthetic fertilizer, which I disagree with. Again, that's my bias. But I wish that there was a bit of room for that. Different people do different things that can work just as well or better than the advice that ChatGPT is giving here. Pruning, removing suckers. Yep, that sounds great. Pest and disease management as a brief guide. I don't have too much to say about that. And then harvesting, sure. And by following these steps, you should be well on your way to growing delicious tomatoes in your garden. Well, I think that any brand new gardener trying to follow these steps would very quickly find that there's not enough detail there. Well, let's go on and let's see if it can tell me, because this was one of my questions earlier, what's the difference between indeterminate and determinate tomatoes? Okay. The main difference is in their growth habits and fruit production. So this is very factual, this kind of question that I've asked here. And that seems to be something that ChatGPT is able to tell me quite well. Determinate tomatoes, more concentrated harvest. So if you want to do something like make a whole bunch of tomato paste or sauce, then a determinate tomato variety may be ideal because you'll have a bunch of tomatoes ready at once. So that is very interesting to me. That was a very factual, what's the difference kind of question. And I think ChatGPT did a much better job of that than when I asked for advice. So let's see what it's going to tell me if I ask about being kind to pollinators, planetary health, minimizing the need for weeding. Does it change the advice? Is it going to be a bit better if I tell ChatGPT a little bit more about what's important to me? Again, choose the right variety. And they're thinking about the pollinators this time. All right, consider growing tomatoes in containers. Okay, select my location. Yep, soil preparation, mulching. They didn't mention mulching before, but that is good additional advice. Watering, still similar. Now they're talking about supporting pollinators by planting other things and having natural pest control with natural predators. That sounds like a bit more tailored to me. Companion planting and harvesting. Now this time they aren't talking about feeding the tomatoes. It's just absent from it. And when I'm looking at this advice, it's a similar complaint that there's still a lot of detail missing. It's not telling me how to plant the tomato. It's telling me things to consider, but not really how to do those things. I'm very biased, but I think I'm still going to be looking for my future garden advice and refining my skills from fellow YouTube creators, from books, from courses, really from humans. For sure, I think that this may be useful when I have very specific questions, but I think I'm going to just hold that little grain of salt in my interpretation of the results, that while this has an answer, it may not be the whole answer. So that's my end result from this. Can you use ChatGPT to find out how to grow a tomato? Yes, but I think that talking to real people will give you a more fulsome idea of the scope of the skill and help you to find the things that resonate with you, that are important for your values and the way that you would like to garden. So however your garden grows, keep growing as a gardener.